everybody, dear colleagues, entrepreneurs, G-men, NGO people, everybody who cares about OSH. I'm happy to see you all alive, and it doesn't sound like a platitude because right now, not everybody enjoys this kind of thing. We have been lucky, we're still around, so we need to make sure that this luck would be enjoyed by other people, our co-workers, fellow colleagues, loved ones, and family members. So we're going to open up a conference devoted to the OSH Day. I am Dmitry Matvichuk, the editor-in-chief of the OSH Magazine. Just a few housekeeping points to begin with. So, I'd like for everybody who is not speaking to mute their microphones for the sake of clarity in the air. And there have been instructions provided for you, and if you have any issues, please contact technical support. There is a chat box, and you can put your questions there to any of the presenters or to the subject matter that is being discussed. So let's look at the agenda, and this gives you an idea of this conference. So that's the agenda, and it will help you see what is this all about. There will be keynote presentations, there will be comments from practitioners. In the end, there's going to be a competition of children's drawings, like OSH in the eyes of children, through the eyes of children. The idea of this all is to raise awareness of the society at large, government, incumbents, people taking part in production, employers, employees, trade unions, about the issues that are out there in the world and in this country which cause injuries and occupational diseases. On the 28th of April every year, they celebrate the World OSH Day. There is the World Day of Memory of Workers that died at work. In 1989, this idea was floated officially. American and Canadian workers paid tribute to their deceased colleagues which died at work. 10 years later, 100 countries of the world joined the cause, organizing their campaigns and events in order to highlight this problem, which was growing every year, causing deaths at work. The first World OSH Day was celebrated in 2003, officially, under the auspices of the ILO. Since 2006, according to the presidential decree, the OSH Day has become a red-letter day for this country, so it's been a recent development, I would say. But nevertheless, I'd like to share a few pictures from the OSH Magazine, from our archives. You will see how it was celebrated in the past, just a few illustrations.
Ну, ось так. Ми здійснили невеличку екскурсію.
So it's been a flashback to the events that were conducted in the past, and nowadays, for the second consecutive year, everything is done differently because of the COVID pandemic. But still, I'm happy to see that we can get together, exchange opinions, and keep in touch with each other. So we're doing this virtually online, but partly it's offline. So we're offline as a studio, but most of you are on the other side of the screen. I can see people keep signing up, and it's a few hundred people that have been taking part in this conference at the moment. Today we're going to have Ruslan Ovcharenko representing Ministry of Economy, Trade and Agriculture. He's coming right up. Igor Degnera, Deputy Chair of the SLS of Ukraine. Also, we are expecting our friend Antonio Santos to come. He runs an ILO-led project in Ukraine. Evgen Jopiatый, Deputy Chair of the Joint Trade Union body, representing pan-Ukrainian trade unions at the national level. There will also be people from the SLS, other guests. You will see all of them, you will hear all of them, you will enjoy their presentations, and will be able to ask them questions. So with this, I'm turning over to Igor. He will make an opening address for the conference. Hello everybody, and I'm happy to be here starting things up at the conference. It's been a traditional event, as we can see, and within this minute we have seen what was going on over the last decade, and those events were traditionally conducted on the OSH Day, World OSH Day, and the entire professional community on that day can get together and address relevant points, outlooks of development, enabling safe and healthy work conditions for employees. I'd like to go back to the idea behind the OSH Day. It's about investing in OSH practices right now for the sake of workers. It's been a leitmotif, and it has been picked up earlier this year. There have been many discussions around this. Overall situation in this country and in the rest of the world is quite complicated economy-wise, and there is always a question about how can you think of increasing investment amounts in the OSH, but we're not necessarily speaking about financial investments. We're thinking of investments in terms of knowledge and practices, expertise, so that even in these trying times, there would be benefits from that. Things are changing rapidly these days. This kind of event would typically be attended by many people offline, and this line we have to be doing this online. And it has become quite a customary way of doing things these days. The Ukrainian SLS since 2019 has done a lot of work in order to increase investments through knowledge and expertise of inspectors for the sake of better OSH practices at work. We step up our activities in preventing accidents and industrial diseases. Inspectors can have a better presence at the workplace, sharing important information and guidance. And it is especially topical when we see coronavirus infection running rampant. In 2012, we could see the growing incidence of the disease among the medics, and we analyzed 7,200 occupational diseases, and the findings of that allowed us to see the typical root causes that lead to health problems in medics. We can see that there are quite some causes that are obvious, and we can think of what could have been done to keep medics safe and healthy. So I can think of individual protective gear, I can think of better ways of organizing things at the workplace. So after that, we covered all of the hospitals and health institutions jointly with the health department in order to offer better protection to medics. Based on the existing risks, we did a lot of awareness raising to make sure you get enough oxygen tanks and all of those installations, ventilators and so on. Many experts in this field know what the SLS has been doing. We started drafting OSH profiles in every region of the country, and these profiles are a result of discussions we have with the social partners and government institutions which are involved in this business. And earlier this year, we made plans for the entire 2021. We had those consultations, we looked at the developments in the regions, and we came up with a prevention plan. So we addressed the riskiest sectors and we focused on them. We make certain lists of measures to be taken based on typical causes of injuries. So this preventive work should pay off. Supervisory work is a way of responding to the fact, responding to something that has happened. We actually believe that we have to be a step ahead of that, trying to make sure these accidents never happen in the first place. So I think these kinds of events should not be held once a year. We have to keep monitoring this situation every time, every day, and the SLS will only be investing more and more into the knowledge and expertise of the inspectors so that they could do a better job at the workplace for the sake of workers. Thank you, Igor. Somewhere in June, we're going to organize a big conference that we used to have previously every year, and your support will be appreciated, and these kinds of messages will allow people to get the idea and better appreciate the problems we're facing. We're happy to welcome Mr. Ovcharenko, representing the ministry. He's responsible for the OSH policy. You're welcome. Hello, dear colleagues, and everybody who's taking part in this event today. This country is facing tremendous challenges and problems right now. And somehow OSH may have been put in the back burner. In my opinion, and in the opinion of the ministry, this is a big problem. It is as big as other problems you get in this country, and they have to be addressed ASAP, as rapidly as possible. Statistics suggest that the death toll at work in 2020 is higher than the death toll in the ATO. So the Ministry of Economy believes that a top priority should be put on this kind of thing, and there is a lot yet to be done about that. There have been quite some challenges out there. Igor spoke of some. And they result from the previous practices. There was a certain system, a certain set of OSH practices, and over time, there is a growing need to change your ways, to change the practices, to change the attitude to this matter. And I think it concerns everybody operating in this field. Employers, employees, trade unions, government authorities. So it is something that concerns everyone because every day we are at work and we face those kind of challenges. Last year, there has been an extra problem coming up, the COVID pandemic. And there have been particular cases in the healthcare sector, and it only made matters worse. So we could see the growing number of these cases, and some of them were lethal, unfortunately. There have been issues with the economy, the economic status of the SLS, because the paycheck and funding and facilities that we have are not enough, and they do not allow inspectors to deliver the best performance. So we still have staffing issues. We could see that there is an outflow of professionals, professional inspectors. What is good is that there is a community of people interested in addressing and resolving this thing in the ministry with the help of the SLS colleagues, employers, trade unions, other institutions. They are drafting a new law to replace the existing OSH law, and there is an ongoing discussion about that. So this is something we need to do. It's a cross-cutting issue to me. Sometimes there are arguments that you see along the way, but it means everybody cares, everybody appreciates the importance of this thing. So there is a need to profoundly change practices in this field, and hopefully in this new law, all of that will be duly reflected. So everybody is on it, everybody is working hard on this, addressing these challenges in the field. There are others willing to have a say in this, I guess. And the ILO colleagues are also on it. They take an active and immediate part in this. They are concerned as much as our colleagues in the government institutions, and that's what we appreciate so much. So once again, I'd like to invite you all to have a discussion of this. Some work has been done, and we are on the finishing straight. So this draft law will come through very soon, and as I said, the idea is to change the way in which OSH practices are implemented in the world of work. Thank you so much, Ruslan. You rightly say that we are about to start making those kinds of changes, and everybody is waiting for that, especially employers, employees, and they are expecting positive changes. The representative bodies of social partners might have different interests, and we can see it, we know where it's at. And that's why it is so hard to finalize the legislative reforms. What is good is that the process goes on, so hopefully at the end of the day we're gonna get an important product and it's gonna be a good guidance for all of us. You also suggest that there is this ADO thing, and another ADO-like thing is the OSH field, because that's where you get quite a high injury incidence at work, and many people die there, and we have to take it seriously. As seriously as that conflict that is going on in the east of the country. Igor, back to you. Sometimes this problem is not so obvious. While you suggest that there is a growing incidence of lethal cases, if you look at statistics across sectors on a monthly basis, you might not notice how big the problem is, but still, there is a way to appreciate this entire situation a great deal better. And that's what we're working on. There is a section in our website that addresses causes of injuries. It is based on the results of investigations we have completed, and there is a clear way to see what's behind the injuries that have occurred. And that over time, this will become quite an archive, a good way for everybody to look into the findings of particular accident investigations and see what caused those injuries. So they will see what are the do's and don'ts. So you will be able to look at your business in this regard to see what you should do right now to keep trouble from happening. And on the World OSH Day, we're gonna grant access to the Telegram channel where you can see particular cases and reasons behind them, reasons behind those accidents. We are testing this channel right now. You get a few reports of accidents every day, and you can see what happened and why. And when you see it, you understand that if certain organizational measures had been taken, then this accident would not have happened. So that's what we're doing now, and we believe it's one of the significant preventive steps that we're taking to help avoid trouble at work. Yes, indeed, we can see that the SLS is changing. It's looking out for new ways of doing things, keeping in touch and communicating with the rest of society, because otherwise there is no way. So with this, we're happy to welcome Sergei Savchuk, and I'm happy to welcome him in here. As Ruslan earlier suggested, the ILO is our powerhouse, our driver, our locomotive, and we gotta pick up those practices and make them a real deal. So Sergei has been in charge of things as the national ILO coordinator in this country. So over to you, Sergei. Hello, Dmitry, for those good words, and thank you for those good words. I appreciate the flashback, the video you have shared with us. And we can see how they used to celebrate the OSH Day over the last decade. And we have seen quite a quality change in these images. So this video allows you to see the changes that were happening over the last decade. Every year it was done more and more professionally, profoundly. So every time it would be something that would catch the eye of many people, experts and everybody else interested in OSH. This day and this event is a catalyst of those discussions, I would say, and it's a good way of exchanging opinions, practices. It's a way of exploring new ways of doing things, and it's a way of exchanging problems and challenges that you get when it comes to resolving OSH problems at work. Celebrating the World OSH Day is an important development, and behind this we can see an existing problem. So workers keep dying at work as we speak. According to the ILO, every year you get more than 3 million people dying at work because of diseases and because of accidents. 374 million suffer from non-lethal accidents. So when people go to work, they do it in order to make a sustainable living for themselves and their families, but they can lose their health and even life there, and that thing should not be tolerated, and we need to respond to that. We keep on saying that OSH at work is an indispensable part of decent work. It is also a part of sustainable development. ILO, in its Global Commission report on the future of work, which was published back in 2019, suggests that health and safety at work is key in attaining Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. The goal number 3 is about healthy lifestyle and well-being, and goal 8 is about decent work and holistic economic development. So, in 2019, there was a centennial anniversary of the ILO, and the Director General, Guy Ryder, said that all countries ratify all ILO conventions pertinent to OSH. And this allows us to think of where it's at with OSH at work in this country. Ukraine, since it has become independent, has been trying to become a part of international standards in OSH. And I'd like to allude to some of the instruments. Convention 155, OSH in production, 176, OSH in mining sector. Certain work has been done, and I guess hopefully they will ratify the Framework Convention 187, sectoral conventions on OSH in port, in stevedoring, and 152, 167, that's about construction. So I'd like to say hello to the government and social partners. There has been progress in ratifying the ILO Convention in maritime sector. It is supposed to replace about 20 obsolete ILO conventions. And I'd like to also highlight a decision made by the Defense and Security Council, which was made back in March of this year, which initiates Ukraine's accession to the Convention 170 about chemicals. So we need to keep the chemicals on the record, and jointly with the ILO and the UN program, we have been talking about that for quite a while. In pursuance of the association agreement between Ukraine and the EU, active work has begun to approximate national legislation to that of the EU. And I'm happy to say that ILO has contributed to this. There is an EU-ILO joint project chaired by my colleague Antonio Santos. We expect that pretty soon a number of legislative acts will follow, and all of them are drafted with the help of this project, and pretty soon they might become laws, and they will transpose the provisions of the Framework EU Convention 391 on OSH. So these are the positive changes that we have to keep in mind, but that's not enough. We cannot say that we have succeeded in this. There is still a great deal of problems to address, and lately we have heard a lot of criticism in relation to international labor standards. They say that we fail to abide by the international labor standards, and that's why some say that the standards themselves are a burden, they're not needed, and so on. As we continue reforms of the labor law, we can see certain practices emerging that narrow down the collective bargaining options and labor law as such. Instead, they say we need to use individual labor contracts and civil law. And in that setting, we narrow the application of international labor standards, including those pertinent to OSH. I spoke of that elsewhere, and I can say it here again. Employers are supposed to make sure that workers enjoy healthy and safe work conditions, and that comes from the labor law. If we substitute it with the civil law provisions, then an employee will be supposed to take care of that because they will work under the civil law contracts. In that setting, when we think of OSH at work, there will be inconsistency, sporadic way of doing it, so it's not going to be efficient. It is important to understand what are the threats behind this approach. Those are the threats to lives of workers and all of these supply chains, value chains, and it's too bad for the consumers of services, all of us, especially in the COVID times. For example, jointly with the WHO and the UN agency FAO, we addressed food safety in the context of COVID. And the findings clearly suggest that if you fail to abide by the OSH in one of the parts of these supply chains, may hurt all the rest of the parts of the chain, and at the end of the day, it will threaten health and life of workers across the board. And the same is true of the consumers. I cannot think of the healthcare sector in which every employee will have to take care of their own safety and health. I cannot think of the consequences it will lead to. Hopefully it will never happen, because European and international labor standards are about something else. It's totally different. ILO thinks that right to safety and healthy work conditions should be on the list of fundamental labor rights. If it happens this way, then it's going to become a part of the list of key rights, fundamental rights. It will be featured in all contracts Ukraine has signed or will sign. So apart from the legal matter, it will become a matter of fair foreign trade. They say that OSH is a burden to businesses, and there are scientific ideas and international practices which prove that OSH helps do things right in business. It helps businesses thrive and succeed. COVID-19 has been a test for those management practices. The companies that were using that in the past were more resilient to the pandemic, and appropriate implementation of OSH practices at work really saves lives. So in this event, we're going to have a chance to take a look at successful business cases and see what sustainable OSH practices do at work, what benefits they produce. The ILO will be standing by your side in this endeavor, and right now in 2021, safety and health at work remains the core activity of the ILO. It was created in 1919, and it has always been about that. Thank you. Thank you, Sergey. You have mentioned important points. We're doing this conference on the eve of this Red Letter Day so that all of the experts could get all of these points, messages. There will be other events conducted in particular businesses and organizations, so everybody should be on the same page. The ILO is working really powerfully along these lines, so I'd like to turn over now to Antonio Santos. He will do his presentation. He is a big friend of ours, and he's my personal friend. Many people in this country can say Antonio is our friend, so he has been able to blend in so well with our community, and he really cares. So he will speak about sustainable OSH practices and what investments are needed. So you will find the interpretation. Okay, Antonio, you're welcome.
Добър ден всім. Good morning to everybody. In my own name and on behalf of the ILO, thank you for your kindly invitation to be here. It is really a pleasure to share some thoughts about this. And I would start by asking you, why in the hell are we spending our time here today? I think the answer is pretty obvious. And the ILO put it very clear. Work kills more people than wars. Can you imagine that? We all work in order to earn money, to sustain our family, in order to feel some sense of recognition, of contribution to the community. But there are a lot of people that are dying working as we speak, as already Sergei mentioned. From a global workforce of 2.84 billion people, around 2 million and 800,000 die every year, which is incredible. Around 2 million people die annually of occupational diseases, and about 400,000 or 500,000 people die every year in around 270 million work-related accidents. That has to stop, really. That has to stop. And we have to address it, and we have to solve this problem, and we have to do anything that we can to prevent that from happening. Because this is the negation of the work itself. It's like, we are not going to work, we are going to commit suicide. And there is some regulations in this country that pay us more to do that, to expose ourselves to higher risks, which does not make really any sense. So we should really think about that. I would stress that this OSH Day started almost 40 years ago. As already Dmitry mentioned, it started as a mourning day. It was organized by in '84 by a Canadian trade union of public officials trade union, and the idea was to mourn for the workers that were injured or died at work. And then in '89, the largest U.S. Trade union institutionalized the World Commemoration Day of the workers that of the hundred thousands of workers that are injured and die every year. And ILO joined at the request of the trade union movement these commemorations in 2003, and the idea is not just commemorate and remember and honor the people that die working. It's also to remember the obvious, is that this death could be avoided, could be prevented. And we should really work on that with all the efforts that we can invest on that. And that's why the title or the motto of this year, World OSH Day, is to invest on resilient OSH systems. This pandemic could not be a coronavirus. It could be another type of virus. It could be other type of OSH risks. The truth is that this pandemic had at least one advantage, which was to put on the table, on the political table, the importance of OSH. Because if the companies, the employers, and the states as a whole had more stringent OSH systems, the impact of this pandemic would not be so devastating. People wouldn't die, so it would not kill so much people, and it would not imply the business disruption that we are seeing every day. And that's the truth is that OSH is always, it was always on the soul of the ILO since its constitution, as already mentioned by Sergey. And I remember in 2017, right before I came to Ukraine, I participated in an international labor conference, and I was struggling at that conference as a expert appointed by my government for the inclusion of the OSH as a fundamental principle and right at work. And it was very tough discussions within the ILC, and it did not pass. I was very frustrated with that. But now the things seem to be changing, and as you can see on the centenary declaration that Sergey mentioned before, OSH is now considered a decisive and essential element of the decent work. And the government body already discussed the consideration of OSH as a fundamental principle and right at work. And that is crucial, because there is nothing more important than our life. So it has to be a fundamental principle and right, of course. And I will see it through. I think we will manage to do so. And that is a huge boost on the promotion of OSH around the world. But what brings me here today is just to address what really is a OSH system, because we are talking about OSH systems, investing in OSH system, in resilient OSH system. So what is really a OSH system? Well, a OSH system can be seen in two perspectives: on national level, on a workplace level. At national level, an OSH system, they are defined in ILO Convention 155, on ILO Convention 187, and also on the European Union OSH Framework Directive 89391. And basically, OSH system is a system that ensures the effectiveness of the right of workers to have safety and health working conditions. And is a system that includes both laws, regulations, collective agreements, and guidelines on OSH. That includes national authorities responsible for OSH, for example, SLS in Ukraine, mechanisms to ensure compliance with the laws, which is also which includes labor inspectorate also, arrangements between workers and employers in order to ensure OSH at the level of the workplaces, institutions responsible for providing training, information, advisory services on OSH, occupational health services, research on OSH, mechanisms to gather information and intelligence on the causes of work-related accidents and occupational diseases that allow us to better prevent them. Igor Degner already talked about it. And also schemes of cooperation, of better cooperation between labor administration, social security, and insurance schemes in order to provide social protection and support to situations in which there are injured or people being victims of work-related accidents or occupational diseases. At undertaking level, it means the implementation of a system that ensures the management of the risks, of the occupational risks to which the workers are or might be exposed. It implies systems that ensure that the risks are avoided at the source, that the risks are assessed, and that there are taken measures to control those risks. This is crucial. And in this system, within this system, the employers have the sole obligation to ensure the health and safety of the workers in all aspects of the work. They are required to ensure that the workplaces have occupation, that workplaces are able to provide safety and health services to the workers, that the workers are provided with the necessary training and information on OSH, that the workers are consulted and participate in the decisions regarding their OSH, that emergency response systems are in place in order to address emergencies at the workplace. Also, that the workers' health is surveilled and monitored. And finally, that there are means that the employer provide the necessary means to prevent and protect the safety and health of the workers, mainly in terms of collective protective measures and personal protective measures. So what is then a resilient occupational safety and health system? A resilient OSH system is one that is based on international standards, namely on ILO Convention 155, ILO Convention 161, ILO Convention 187, and is also considers the EU-OSH Framework Directive and the other individual directives regarding specific risk, specific sectors of activity, and specific types of workers. It is also in order to be resilient, such a OSH system should result from the continuous social dialogue between the government, the employers' organizations, and the workers' organizations, either at national level, but also at the regional level and at the level of the workplace floor. Also, it should be framed by an adequate OSH policy that ensures the articulation and coordination of all actors of the OSH system at all levels, not only at the level of the employer and the workplaces, between workers, the employer representatives, the workers representatives, and the representatives for safety and health at work, but also at national level, that ensures the coordination between the public and private entities that constitute really the OSH system. And these private and public entities should work as a system to support the development of the occupational safety and health policy, either at national level and at the level of the workplaces. And this gathers the entities that are responsible for legislation, for standardization, certification, research, training, information, education, consultation, etc. Because the state cannot expect that an employer provides, for example, provides training to the workers if there is no scheme in the country that allows to certify public or private entities to provide those trainings. And that does not ensures the proper certification of the qualification of the trainers themselves. So this system should work closely in order to ensure that the OSH system at the workplace will function. Also, this resilient OSH system should also prevent, mitigate, and ensure preparedness for crises and their adverse effects, like this pandemic crisis. If there was a resilient OSH systems in Ukraine, either at national level, but also at the workplace level, probably we would not have so much lockdowns as we are seeing today. Also, this resilience of the OSH system should also be based on the identification, assessment, and control of occupational risks. It should integrate systems for response and preparedness to emergencies, and should be able to compatibilize the need for ensuring the safety and health of the workers, and at the same time ensure business contingency and continuity management. How to do so? Well, we need to invest, and this investment does not necessarily require financial investment, as already pointed out by our colleague Igor Degnera. We are in a very important moment in time in Ukraine, where, as you know, there is being discussed a OSH draft law aimed at transposing to national legislation the EU-OSH Framework Directive 89-391. That is a crucial step in order to modernize national legislation on occupational safety and health, and most especially to implement a policy which is based on risk management, avoiding the risks, assess the risks, and control the risks. So that should be the main investment at national level at the moment. And that is just the first step, because other next phases will involve the transposition of the individual directives in order to transpose all the legal framework and not just the mother directive. It is also important in Ukraine at national level to ensure an effective labor inspection system that is properly aligned with ILO Conventions 81 and 129. And for that, labor inspection legal framework in Ukraine should be revised. There is now a Minister of Economy draft law on supervision and control of compliance with labor legislation, but that draft is pretty far away from being aligned with ILO Convention 181 and 129 of the ILO. So I challenge the Minister of Economy in order to take into account our technical recommendations to that draft law in order to bring it closer not only to these ILO conventions, but also with the EU acquis. Also, it is necessary, in order to improve OSH in Ukraine, to ensure the proper work of the National Tripartite Social and Economic Council, in order to really stimulate the social dialogue in what comes to legislation, either on OSH or in labor relations. So you have the structure, so you should use it. You should revitalize it. Also, it is important to boost the organization of the training system in Ukraine, and also the health systems in Ukraine, in order to support the employers to ensure the training of the workers and their health monitoring. It is also important to stimulate research on OSH and to improve the system of collection, notification, recording, analysis of data on occupational diseases and work-related accidents. And finally, to reinforce collaboration between labor administration and social security. At the undertaking level, and to conclude, it is important in order to develop resilient OSH systems at the workplace level, that the employers really formulate and implement plans to prevent occupational risks. And those plans should be based on risk management, risk avoidance, risk assessment, and risk control. They should ensure the existence of OSH services provided to workers within workplaces. They should ensure that workers have adequate and proper training and information on OSH. They should ensure the consultation and the participation of the workers in the decisions regarding their OSH, mainly through the workers' representatives for OSH and also through OSH committees. They should ensure the health surveillance of OSH of all workers, and they should implement the necessary preventive and protective measures to ensure the health and safety of the workers. And once this all is done, I'm pretty sure that Ukraine will be proud of the decrease that it will see on the incidence rates of fatal and the serious work-related accidents and occupational diseases. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I wish you a very fruitful and productive session. Thank you, Dimitro. The floor is yours.
Антоніо, я теж вам дуже дякую.
Well, thank you so much as well. We never have enough time for everyone at an event like that, but on the 28th, Antonio, you're welcome to join a marathon, and there you will have more time. You will be able to say everything you wanted. So we're going to continue this on the 28th of April on the World OSH Day. So I'm supposed to be keeping the time here, so I'd like to turn over now to a representative of the SLS. Actually, everything that is happening here is happening under the auspices of the SLS, and there has been support from the ILO monitoring adherence to labor law. So, Mr. Ignatov, you're welcome. He's the deputy chair of the department. It's a long name of the department, so I'm not going to say it. Okay, colleagues, hello. I wish everybody good health, and I'll be brief. As we know, the ILO Convention carries three major objectives about labor inspection. Igor told us about some, but let me go over this again. So it speaks about government supervision. Right now in this country, we have more than 700,000 businesses under supervision. That's quite a sizable number. There is an existing moratorium on inspection because of COVID, and in 2020, compared to a year ago, there has been a 50% drop in the number of inspections. This year we are still under restrictions, and we changed the way in which we do supervision and determine efficiency of preventive and supervisory work done by territorial offices. We improved the procedure of approving the plans for supervision and prevention plans. We took them up with the central apparatus based on research findings we receive online. Our plans are based on the following criteria: the cause of an accident, signs of hazardous companies, technical condition of equipment, technology process characteristics, reports from citizens suggesting that employers breach the law. We collect all of this, process all of this, and based on that we make plans. We also monitor the reports in the media, because pretty often we can see that somewhere a crane has fallen down or an explosion has happened, but we never get any reports about that, although we're supposed to receive them in the first place. Secondly, awareness raising. As Igor earlier said, in order to improve safety and efficiency of operations of territorial offices, we came up with a typical safety profile, OSH profile, and there you get information necessary for the SLS. In the regions, we looked at the status of ocean companies, and that involved all of the stakeholders. And based on that, we made with the prevention plans and determined top priority preventive work areas. For each region, we determined their own set of preventive measures to be taken, which will be most efficient considering the specific nature of the region. Another tool in doing that is online workshops that are done with the businesses and inspectors. So we analyze the performance of inspectors and things they do, and we let them know what they do wrong and what can they do better. SLS experts receive updates and they do online consultations with employers and employees and their organizations. It is done in the central apparatus and in the territorial offices. For the sake of efficiency of prevention, we use our inspectors in technical consultations. They do it at the workplace, especially where elevated hazard is found. They're not speaking with the management or OSH officers. Well, you have to work with those as well, but technical advice should best be done at the workplace. And thirdly, we seek to improve existing legislation. Digitalization has become a buzzword in the things we do. So our management took initiative, and based on today's conditions, we drafted a routine for digital circulation of documents in the OSH field. These innovations suggest that we have to change our ways in OSH, like we can draft, store, use, and destroy different types of documents, which are regulated by many regulations, like knowledge, protocols, control system, access system, logs, and other records that are kept in companies. We believe that electronic circulation of documents in OSH is a good alternative under the existing law. An employer can choose to apply either new systems and technologies, or they can choose to keep using paper records, storing them, keeping them in a particular place. This has become topical in the pandemic time for employers. Employers have to use distant working. Current legislations do not say that instructional advice can be conducted online. All items in the logs do not say that instructional advice has been conducted, but if we change our ways, we're going to be able to do it this way, and we will save time for businesses. It will optimize communication on the inside and outside of the company. It will optimize work hours, so it may shorten the time intervals between transmittal of information. It is especially true of the access control system in large companies or in distant entities like trunk lines and heat supply lines. And this allows us to go one level up in relations between a customer and contractors in terms of OSH. You can see this draft in the official website of the SLS in the public consultation section. It is the first draft regulation which has been supported by everyone, by all employers and trade unions. It doesn't happen too often, but this time has been that consensus. Everybody understands that that's our future. So that's briefly it from me, and I'd like to thank the colleagues, and I'd like to wish everybody good health.
Пане Олександре, дуже слушно, ви мені допомагаєте регламент вирівнювати, але знаю, що...
Thank you. I appreciate your brevity, and I know you have extensive knowledge in this. So, the conference that is coming in June will also address the electronic circulation of records, documents, and we're going to discuss that. We're going to try and see how it should be done. Everybody should be able to get the message. As a moderator, let me say that there was this acronym OSH. Well, it's Safety and Health, basically. There is a Ukrainian acronym, and not everybody can know it, but that's why I'm explaining this. It's a change. We used to call it differently, but now you need to know that this new acronym is the same thing as what you knew before. So it involves three actors: government, employers, and trade unions. By way of consensus, they find a compromise, a trade-off, and We're happy to welcome Evgeny Japiaty, one of those who represents the joint trade union body. You're welcome. Hello, dear colleagues and friends. Life makes us speak about these kinds of things. You know, OSH is moving from the periphery to the epicenter, and it's in line with the things we're supposed to do. The third article of the Constitution says that human being is the lofty social value. Its health and safety and life are the key components of this Constitution. So every year we celebrate the World OSH Day and commemoration of deceased workers. And on that day we typically see what has been done and what has been done this year in particular. The economic crisis caused by the pandemic allowed us to see existing challenges in OSH. 1 in every 3 workers face unsafe and unhealthy work conditions. Many companies fail to abide by the OSH requirements and the occupational health standards. In 2020, the number of accidents at work compared to 2019 was up by 58%. Lethal cases were up by 55%. The total cases at work that have been reported to us, including acute occupational diseases, those were up 7-fold, reaching 40,700. The number of reports of occupational diseases that were lethal were up by 25%, reaching 1,540. Insurance cases were recognized only in 16% of lethal cases and 42% of unlethal cases. It suggests that victims and members of their families, people that died at work, are not eligible for insurance payouts from the Social Insurance Fund, which is guaranteed by Article 43. Article 46 guarantees the right to Social Security in case of complete or incomplete loss of ability to work. So the workers and their families are eligible for that benefit. So let me now move on to my presentation. We speak about resilient practices. Federation of Trade Unions is one of the systems that does OSH work. The joint representative body covers 6.5 million workers. More than 50% work officially inside Ukraine. And that's a source of budget replenishment. It is something that creates the national product. These are the people that work and they are in need of protection. In the slide you can see that the Federation of Trade Unions features 4 million people, 45 pan-Ukrainian trade unions and 25 territorial trade union amalgamations. We have to rely on specific national and international legal standards. You can see some of those in the slide. You will get my presentation materials. So we say that today this country has been able to pass a number of important laws on OSH, social insurance, collective agreements, labor code, trade union law. There are other laws and regulations out there. There is an association agreement between Ukraine and the EU, and that's quite a breakthrough, and it means that we need to keep strengthening the dialogue for the sake of decent work and decent OSH practices. We need to create more jobs, making them decent. We need to improve OSH practices for people. Social partnership should find a way to thrive. So this agreement is the cornerstone for the new government. They want to do things new way. New trade unions want to operate in new conditions. New employers want to be a part of this process too. They would gain benefits from that, and they spend quite some of their budgets to make it a real deal. There is a general agreement for 2019-2021 between trade unions, employers, and cabinet of ministers. These are the documents, the papers that stipulate our commitments in terms of OSH. There is a section on it there. Also, you get sectoral agreements. In this country, you get 97 of them signed between ministries, sectors, employers, and trade unions. I can show you a sectoral agreement in the mining and metallurgy sector where a trade union operates. It shows that we're investing in OSH. So it says that the cost of OSH should be at least 0.6% of the proceeds from selling products. It is 30 times more than what is envisioned in the law on OSH. It says 0.5% of the wages and salaries fund. That's where the investment is. That's how we can make OSH a real deal. We need to make it a part of sectoral agreements. The Federation has 25 trade unions and their amalgamations, and they have territorial agreements. Here is one signed between Dnepropetrovsk regional government and Federation of Employers of the region and trade unions of the region. So each territorial agreement carries a section on OSH requirements. And this is implemented across all of the companies and organizations down the chain. In companies, OSH is a part of collective agreements. There is 51,400 collective agreements out there in companies and businesses. And we can organize a competition for the best collective agreement. It's going to be a good way of exchanging practices. In Severodonetsk, it's an agreement between Ukraine and investors, and it's about foreign investments, and it carries a section on OSH requirements, what should be the OSH spendings, who should be trained and how. There's also a similar agreement between a tobacco company and an investor, so there is a section on OSH requirements there too. So it works consistently. Sergei, representing the ILO, spoke of the general agreements, and we ratified ILO conventions, and that should improve OSH practices in this neck of the woods. Resiliency is about consistency of OSH, and we keep analyzing all of the draft laws, draft regulations of ministries and agencies. We vet them. We involve experts and scientists to do it. We check with practitioners, and they vet the drafts relevant to OSH. We do it in the joint trade union body, in territories. And all of that is aiding us in this cause. And the primary unions that take care of the safety of workers, they work in this with employers, and they do it consistently too. We do technical inspection. I mean, trade unions do it. We have 170 technical inspectors in regions and cities. This public watch is done by more than 2,000 unionists. In companies, the public watch over adherence to labor law and social security for victims is done by 36 representatives of unions on OSH. The draft that was mentioned earlier is needed. But it doesn't mention public watch, it doesn't mention trade unions. And that's surprising. I'd like to show you that over 2020, we have been able to detect 65 violations as a result of our inspections. No, we did 6,500 inspections and more than 20,000 violations have been found. In 2020, trade unions reported more than 3,000 cases to employers. 26,000 have been handled. That statistics is there, and it does not reflect the way things are. Many information never gets reported. The EU carried out a study, and they see that if you detect 7 or 8 potential problems that never happened, it's a good progress. There was a 25% increase in the efficiency of avoiding accidents. All of that is based on consistent training of personnel, workers, officers that do OSH job. We have Health Department, Federation of Trade Unions, training centers in territorial offices, primary trade unions. So it all constitutes a good system for training staff, training personnel, and they become OSH inspectors and they have direct access, unhampered access. They have adequate knowledge and skills to do their job. We can see extensive problems in the health sector and everywhere because of the quarantine. We drafted some recommendations about preventing COVID-19 from spreading on at workplace. You can find this material on our website. We keep producing that stuff all the time. We spell out there the key provisions that are relevant to OSH officers. It is something they need to know and apply, and it is something they have to abide by. We also take part in national institutions. In the Cabinet of Ministers, we take part in deliberations and discussions, and it allows us to address relevant OSH issues or some other issues. There are government committees where you can do it too. We have our people in the Supreme Council. We have an agreement with the SLS, with the Human Rights Commissioner. We're present in all international institutions. ILO clearly says that OSH should become a part of Declaration of Fundamental Rights of People. Globally, we collaborate with the Confederation of Trade Unions of Ukraine, Pan-Regional Council, European Confederation of Trade Unions. We also keep in touch with the UN, and also we work with NGOs under Ukraine EU initiative. We and our fellow colleagues keep the social dialogue running. And those who initiate draft laws do it without a social dialogue, then they get them passed, and then they say, let's come to terms and discuss things. That's not the way to do it. If we abide by the supremacy of law, we need to do these things consistently and sustainably. We need to speak with those who face particular problems. If this is workers, then we need to consider workers in the first place when we initiate a particular draft law. Employers are only supposed to take care of controlling fiscal retributive missions, but there's no incentive for employers, and trade unions want to make sure that there's going to be an incentive for them. It should come from the government. It will allow to create decent works, decent jobs, and safety work conditions there. National Tripartite Socio-Economic Council is getting nowhere fast. By law, it is supposed to do its part of the job, but it doesn't. That's why we didn't have a full-blown social dialogue, and we did not draft appropriate regulations at the national level. Some of the informal sector could become formal, and then 4 million people that are found in the sector would become a part of collective agreements. A collective agreement is a tool for protecting these people. We know that there are lots of unreported injuries and deaths, but all of that is found off the radar. We all operate officially, we all are on the radar. But there are many people that are not like that. These are some of the ILO guidelines, but I'm gonna skip that. Let's move on to the recommendations about coronavirus. They are about distant working, teleworking, something you can do in the quarantine time. There are tips for those who are on business trips. There are tips for organizations to tell them what to do when people are sick and they found them sick at work. There are ways of investigating the infectious cases, and also there are ways to abide by the quarantine rules in order to avoid the spread of infectious disease. Speaking of the OSH draft law at work, I think we need to get the dialogue going, and we shared our proposals on 50 pages. We analyzed discrepancies, we submitted that to the Ministry of Economy. There is no rush on that. When you make changes to the labor law, you need to remember it's all about workers' rights. In this draft, it's all about workers. So employers gain an upper hand, but employees are not clearly described, mentioned there. Trade unions in that setting have to help workers and fellow unionists. We need to see how things get done these days, and we need to try and minimize the death rate and mortality and morbidity and all of that. So We're speaking about the World OSH Day, and I think that at the government level, concerted efforts of the government, central and local employers and trade unions will be able to make with safety and health for people at work. But we need to at least abide by the current legislation. There is an effective OSH law, which suggests that OSH programs have to be there in companies. We are expecting for the new law to come up, but in the meanwhile, we need to abide by the existing law consistently. We also believe that the national program on OSH should be passed, in particular for medics. In conclusion, I'd like to say that what we're discussing today is something that hurts every family. It hurts everybody. It can be metallurgy sector, mining sector, medics, whatever. They all are at risk. If we say that a human being is the loftiest value, and all of our laws say that everything that is done for the sake of people, then that's going to be the right way. But there should be responsibility for implementing this law. And a few years down the road, we will see what has been done. But since nobody is responsible, then the law is never enforced. And no matter how many times you review the existing law, it's not going to help. We need to make sure everybody pitches in for the sake of better outcomes. Thank you. I wish you all good health and success in what you do. I think this collaboration will continue, and I guess this conference and the upcoming conference will be a good continuation of this discussion. So thank you so much once again. I'll see you around. Thank you, Evgeny, and I think everybody who is listening to us and will be listening to us will be able to listen to all of the points you have made, and trade unions really care. That's what makes them stand out. They emotionally perceive all of these challenges, and they use the leverage they have, the practices they have under the law. So you spoke of the informal sector and other problems, and they're still around. I spoke with Portugal yesterday. A man from Ukraine out there told me, your problem is informal sector. He gave me examples of what is done. People are sleeping under the tables, they're hiding here and there. And that's where it's at. We need to admit it. Otherwise, we'll never be able to overcome these kinds of problems. The changes that we see are irreversible. I think we need to go through this all. We need to pass this troublesome time. It's not easy, but I think we're going to find a way to do it. So the SLS and trade unions and employers are coming to terms little by little. So with this, I'd like to turn over to Ludmila Harchuk. She will tell us about the situation with the occupational diseases of medics. It's a very topical issue. It concerns medics in the first place. Ludmila, who is in charge of this, has been able to see the growing topicality of this thing. You will see the presentation. Hello everybody, I'm happy to welcome you all. I'd like to wish good health to everybody. And that's the most important thing we have. Medics nowadays are in need of this social security and protection. The SLS monitors the status of investigation of occupational diseases among the medics. We try to make investigations timely and unbiased. We have 81,111 medics that are sick. Out of that number, 740 died. Territorial offices of the SLS received more than 48,000 reports of infection cases of medics at work. Out of that, you get 658 reports of death. Investigations are underway. Sometimes we cannot complete the investigation on time in order to see where it happened and how. It happens like that because we never get timely information about epidemiologic investigation from health sector, and we do not timely get ME findings and reports. The most vulnerable groups are nurses of different types. Among nurses, more than 16,000 have been sick. 8,000 assistant nurses, then you get doctors in the primary health care like family doctors. More than 2,000 of those are sick. We investigated more than 22,000 cases of disease in medics. More than 5,000 cases are related to work conditions. Other 16,000 cases do not detect anything that has to do with the work people do. We completed investigations. It's more than 4,000 lethal cases. Half of them are work-related. 300 cases were not work-related. Since 2021, they simplified the investigation procedure for lethal cases in medics. Health institutions without SLS people and Social Security Fund conducted 82 investigations. 51 out of that has been completed. 32 cases were recognized work-related cases. This procedure has not been 100% simplified. We still have two documents which are key in making a decision to see if a case was work-related or not. The findings of an epidemiologist and report of the occupational pathologist. We have a shortage of those in the country. In some regions of the country, there is none. In Kherson region, there is not a single occupational pathologist who could make a report on the place and source of the infection of a medic. We have plans to prevent and overcome infectious diseases in medics. Territorial offices of the SLS keep doing awareness raising of the need to abide by the sanitary and anti-epidemic measures in health sector. As Igor said, we monitor the causes of occupational diseases in medics, and the key reason is organizational malpractice, a failure to use individual protective gear. Then comes shortage of individual protective equipment. Then psychophysiologic causes, psycho-emotional and physiologic workload when it comes to dealing with contagious infectious. 61% of cases are found in that area. These are the doctors that work in infectious disease hospitals and resuscitation units, and that's where you get most of the COVID patients. The government is trying to preserve life and health of medics. Speaking of chronic occupational diseases, last year we had a slight decrease in the number of those. But if you think of mining sector, it's the leader in terms of incidence of chronic occupational diseases. Occupational chronic diseases can be seen at a later stage when it's hard to do adequate treatment and help a medic regain health. Chronic occupational diseases, as a rule, are detected not as a result of examination, but in most cases, 87%. The diagnosis is made when a worker has presented themselves to the clinic. Most of the chronic occupational diseases are registered in Dnipropetrovsk and Lviv regions. Preserving health and life is the key objective of the SLS. We try to keep on it. We try to do investigations on time, establishing the cause of the occupational disease, and we also try to come up with measures to preserve health and life of workers. Thank you. Thank you, Ludmila. I appreciate those updates. So you are there out in the front, and you are facing the threats that we're talking about. So I wish you success in this, and we rely on your proficiency and activity. So you really want to challenge this ongoing concern that we have here. So with this, let's move on. I'd like to turn over to Sergey Terevik, who is in charge of the prevention of insurance cases. The social insurance fund is used by employers if the director and the accountant sign the paperwork to transfer insurance funds. In Europe, it is done in a differentiated way. And also, they do it when something goes wrong, a trouble happens, and Sergey will tell us more about that. Hello, everybody. Social Insurance Foundation offers insurance for accidents at work by conducting preventive measures to prevent accidents from happening at work, as well as occupational diseases. It does so through the service of insurance experts of the fund, and also it funds preventive measures at the expense of the funds of this foundation. We have been able to come up with particular measures that will be undertaken. They have been okayed. We take an immediate part in all of the things that are done in this regard. So we need to be prepared to respond to the crisis at any point in time. We will see what has been done in December, what are the results, because the measures are supposed to be implemented over the course of this year. Speaking of investments in resilient OSH practices and health at work, I'd like to say that the Foundation, jointly with the social partners and the Ministry of Social Policy, has drafted and approved a new routine for preventing insurance cases which are funded by the Foundation. And this decision was made by the board of the Foundation on the 25th of November of this year, February of this year, Ordinance number 10. So this routine envisions that we will fund research on occupational health, we will train those who will do OSH, we will draft regulations on OSH, we will popularize safe practices at work. Last December, we sent letters to the ministries, research institutions, Federation of Employers, Federation of Trade Unions, in order to gain proposals to shape up respective measures. The board of the foundation is looking into these proposals right now, and everybody who can address OSH issues and has particular projects that could be funded, please share that with us, with the board of the foundation. We will look into that, and maybe they will be included on the list of things that will be funded by us. In this pandemic setting, we are expecting for these proposals from the health ministry and from research institutions which address OSH issues. Today we speak about investing in resilient OSH practices, and that's a real topical thing for today. And there is a need for such systems in place, considering existing risks at work that should be identified and assessed. We analyzed the causes behind acute occupational diseases among medics and other workers in 2020. And among the causes, there are 46% of unidentified causes. So in 2020, according to the existing reports, there have been occupational diseases which were work-related. They make 34%, psychophysiologic 14%, technical 4%, other causes 46%, so unidentified causes. So there is something wrong with the way we keep records and monitor occupational diseases, because 46% of unidentified causes, that's too much, and all of that is work-related, as we know. If you don't know the cause, then it's not easy to come up with an efficient way to prevent this disease. We cannot even think of resilient OSH practices in that setting. So the health ministry needs to quickly draft a classifier of events and causes that led to an acute occupational disease related to coronavirus infection. Starting July of 2019, when a new routine of investigation was introduced, the state statistical office did a survey of occupational diseases and accidents using information from the Social Security Foundation, and that information gets published by the State Statistical Service, which is one of the government institutions. It covers companies, government and non-governmental institutions, and so on. So this information is supposed to be unbiased, timely, and complete. For the sake of consistent OSH practices and health of workers, we need to nurture the national preventive culture in the field of OSH, which entails information and consultations. But in the current setting, we can hardly think about that. In order to make this national preventive culture possible, we need to look at the Convention 187 of the ILO. There is an action plan in pursuance of the General Agreement for 2019-2021. It is recommended that the budget of the fund carry earmarked finance to make sure that we make a televised project, health and safety in life, and The State Broadcasting Committee and SLS are behind it as the key implementing agencies. In this regard, the fund is intending to work with the SLS to implement the project. And I would like to collaborate with the OSH Magazine. Dmitry is the editor-in-chief of that magazine, and I know the founder of this edition. They are an active and professional information resource. This magazine has been around for quite some time. You took part in implementing government programs in OSH. I remember this competition of OSH through the eyes of children, and I think the televised project that I mentioned could be a good platform for discussing topical issues of OSH, and it could significantly contribute to the national preventive culture in OSH. Thank you. Thank you, Sergey. You were reading my mind, actually, because when you were speaking about this project on TV, I was thinking like maybe we could contribute to that, and you told me about that in a minute. So it's pretty much in line with what we do and want to do. All right, I appreciate that, and let's move on. We have received 3 questions. One of them is about training experts in OSH, and there are many things behind it. So Igor will be making comments on that. There are licensing conditions in education and training, and OSH is under civil safety, but licensing conditions are tough, and it takes to have so many facilities and hardware to do it. So right now, not all training centers can do it. And some instructors have reported these kinds of problems, but I think it is something that we can see in the entire OSH sector. We may have heard parts of the answer in the previous presentations. A colleague from the Ministry of Economy was saying that there are active discussions underway to draft a new law on OSH at work. The starting point of those discussions is the existing OSH law. They try to see what's working good in that, what's not working good. So in that law, we have many positive provisions, but right now they look like formalities. I'm speaking of health examinations, checkups, global physicals. So they're done as a formality to put a check in the box, but they're not done the way in which they could detect early signs of a occupational disease. Same is true of the training people in OSH. So sometimes people get mailed messages. Some training centers do it this way. Then certification of workstations, workplaces. So sometimes you call a lab to see how much will it cost to get a workplace certified, and then they ask you, should we come over to your place or not? So all of that leads to the fact that Ukraine seeks to integrate with the European legislation, but these existing concerns really get in the way. And that's why we now have to review the practices in OSH. And the new draft law is about putting new requirements on OSH experts. I think right now we are drifting away from the Soviet principles of making requirements for particular occupations. And that includes occupational standards and all that. So I think at the end of the day, we're going to have occupational standards for OSH officers, and that's going to be a solid starting point for training institutions. They will do the training, they will make with the training programs and so on. So we have to make these important steps in terms of changing the underlying principles. The existing OSH law has been around for quite some time in this country, but still we are far away from making it a real deal. I'm thinking of reducing lethal and unlethal injuries. Evgeny, today we can become a center for training OSH experts. The Academy of Labor and Social Relations keep doing the training for sectoral trade unions. So we can invite some of the instructors because they didn't have any work to do right now, and we discussed that previously with employers. So we have this academy in place, and we can find enough instructors with respective background, and we can do it for our system, and we can do it for others based on a contract. So you're welcome to check with us. We've got these facilities. Thank you, Evgeny. I don't think university instructors will appreciate that, but that's a disputable point. Okay, we'll see. Your proposal has been made, and there seems to be a good idea behind it. There was a question from Natalia Borodina, and there is a question from Vadim Fedoruk. We need to look at the investigations and the causes, like what makes workers work undeclared in the informal sector. Decent work conditions and other relevant matters are addressed by my service all the time. We work jointly with the Ministry of Economy, trying to reduce the number of causes that make employers and employees operate in the informal sector. There are ongoing discussions with employers, and we can hear them say that there is a tax burden, the labor relations are overregulated, and it's so hard to administer employment relations, and that's why they choose to work informally. The Ministry of Economy initiated the labor law, and that sparked up quite an intense discussion in society. Nowadays, they're reviewing the concept of employment relations, and they make certain changes to the labor law here and there. There have been initiatives okayed by the Supreme Council introducing a flexible regime, flexible work hours, teleworking, and there are some other draft laws which will come up shortly, and they will be submitted to the government and Supreme Council. We need to see the reasons behind informal employment. We need to see what those are and do something about that. Many employers and employees have seen the efficiency of SLS activities in this. There have been awareness-raising campaigns. The project is involved. There is a national awareness campaign, Come to the Light, which covers Kiev city and regions. You get big boards, public announcements, all that. So apart from drafting legislation, we also need to create a zero tolerance to these practices. I mean, informal employment, because those who work informally have to respect themselves and their rights. If all of us do that, then everybody will be able to make the right choice, which is to work in a formal sector. One of my friends who is retired, he only spent 15 years working, and he tells me like, I have been working all of my life. Where did you work? I worked here and there precariously. Have you paid any contributions? No. But now you want to get benefits. So people just do not understand that you are paying certain contributions in order to get benefits later. It's not about having somebody pay and you still get benefits although you don't pay anything. In Europe, they do not respect those who do not pay. With us, it's different. The overall perception seems to be like that. They look at the SLS as a retributive authority, but if we think of undeclared work, if there is no response to it, then the government should do something, and typically it's about forcing you to do something that is right. But in the SLS website, would like to share some of the real stories in which inspectors' work is a benefit to the life of a particular citizen. That includes control measures and explanations, elucidations. If you look at that, you might think of it as made-up stories. But we cannot share the personal data. We cannot give you the name of the company or the name of the worker. But those are real-life stories. And they include inspectors' advice, awareness raising, and sometimes even control measures produce benefits that help people overcome their problems. I remember one person on Facebook reported that a few months ago an inspector came to their company. They do woodworking there. And that guy says through Facebook that the inspector came over, did some control work, but the employer still kept their workforce undeclared. It's a small company. The inspector was not supposed to impose sanctions the first time he came. So the workers say, there is no other option of employment for us, so we have to be working like this. And I don't know how they're going to make a pension, but that's the way it is with them. All right, let's move on. We don't have much time left. There was a question from Alexander, and Evgeny will respond. So, as you say, numbers fail to reflect the reality, but OSH Institute keeps doing research all the time. And somehow the government does not take it on board. We work with the OSH Institute, and the research findings that you get should be taken on board. SLS, Social Security Fund, trade unions, companies, employers, well, they need to figure out the way of presenting findings to the people in order to let them see what's going on in terms of injuries, diseases, lethal cases. On average in this country you have 4,500 accidents. About 400 to 500 out of them are lethal, so that information should be looked at carefully. Okay, one more thing and we're done with the first part. It's a question from Alexander Kovalenko. It's a question for Sergey. The proposals for improved OSH in particular companies are there, but the companies cannot afford it. Nowadays you seem to have some. Earlier this year, we have established a new routine for preventive actions, measures. It happened on the 25th of February. And there are criteria and requirements on projects which should be funded at the expense of the Social Security Fund. If we receive a project that matches the criteria, then we look into the project, we vet it independently, and then we take it up with the board of the fund to see if that project is eligible for funding. So that's what we're doing, and we're gonna get all of the projects vetted by independent experts, and then they're gonna be included in the preventive measures list. We will be doing that for the next 3 years, so 2021 through 2023. And we're speaking about the measures that are going to take more than 1 year to get fulfilled, implemented. Okay, thank you, Sergey. I got it. So it's not enough to propose a project. You need to have a good rationale behind it. You need to make it topical, expedient. You need to see efficiency of the funds you're going to offer to that project. All right, with this, let's take a 5-minute technical break, so don't wander off. There will be presentations by practitioners from companies from Krasnolymansk, Mukharsk. There will be Tatiana Badyak speaking from Nova Poshta. So we will see what people are doing, what are the challenges, and so on. And then we will announce the competition of children's drawings. We'll see the pictures and all of that, the gifts. So you're gonna have time to learn something and to have some fun. So let's take a 5 minutes break. We are taking part in the online conference devoted to the World OSH Day, which will be celebrated on the 28th of April in the whole world. And let's move on to the practical side, and let's speak with the practitioners that are doing this out there in their companies, trying to make sure they do well with OSH under this pandemic situation. So it's important to have this collaboration between employers and employees, especially in the trying times of the COVID pandemic. Key areas and benefits gained. How OSH helps create safer work conditions and how it can allow a business operate uninterruptedly. Let's have it from Sergey Lubimov, the Deputy OSH Director of Krasnolymansk Company. Hello, Sergey. Hello, everybody. It's a pleasure to welcome you all. And the World OSH Day is rolling in. I'm the Deputy OSH Officer of Krasnolymansk Company. This company mines mineral resources like coal. I have spent just a couple of weeks working in this company, and I'm happy to be able to employ the knowledge here that I gained when I was trained in the other company. So these skills come in handy right here in this company. We decided to make a video about coronavirus. So my team have produced a video and we show it to the employees in this company. And also you can find it on Facebook. It helps people understand that there is pandemic out there and they have to be careful. And also, we are intending to keep on it to produce other videos as a way of letting people understand that it is important to consider OSH seriously. All right, thank you, Sergey. I can see quite some creative ideas behind them. So you took excerpts from some popular movies and they help you make everything clear to the folks watching it. So thank you so much. I wish you success in your new endeavor, in your new position. With this, let's have it from Ludmila Mukharska. She's in charge of Biomedzachist. It's like an NGO.
Включіть звук, будь ласка.
Вибачте. Добрий день, шановні колеги. Добрий день, учасники.
Hello, everybody, colleagues and participants. I'm Ludmila Ukharska. I run a recently established Biomedzachist Association, and I'd like to thank the SLS for responding to our call and invited us to take part in the conference. I remember Igor said in his opening remarks that medics do get sick, they contract COVID-19, and some of them even die of it. One of the reasons is lack of individual protective gear and equipment. Sometimes that equipment is used inappropriately. Sometimes the equipment is low quality. So we decided to establish this association as the pandemic broke out. Many of these causes could have been avoided. Personal protective equipment is something that all of the workers' employees must have in their disposal, in particular in the healthcare sector. I appreciate the messages shared by our colleague Ludmila. She told us about the statistics of lethal cases among the medics. 81,000 medics have contracted the disease and about 48,000 contracted it at work. There should not be so many cases of occupational disease if a country is doing things right. So we decided to do something in terms of biosafety and protection of population. We work with domestic experts, practitioners, and producers of PPEs, personal protective equipment. We seek to establish strong professional ties with the producers and laboratories, doctors, medics. So it's not just about production, but it's also about distribution of PPEs. Our members have experience in producing PPEs of European quality. As the pandemic goes on, the Ukrainian companies in 2020 branched out into the production of PPEs. And they use innovative technologies to make them. They make seals and stitches in a new way. They invested millions of US dollars in these productions, and now it allows them to produce better PPEs. They also created thousands of jobs. They established ties to purchase raw materials in order to produce high-quality PPEs. There is a domestic production of raw materials for that in Ukraine. They have been able to certify domestic PPEs, and it means they are in line with the domestic and European standards. High-tech productions have been started to make high-quality PPEs used in medicine to combat the COVID, and also there are PPEs that meet particular standards of quality, and you also get biologic protection overalls, aprons, headgear, face masks, overshoes. Well, you have all sorts of PPEs which are now domestically produced in this country. Now we can supply adequate amounts of PPEs to respective institutions and organizations. But there are some challenges that get in the way. We work with the Federation of Employers of this country and Supreme Council, Cabinet of Ministers, Health Ministry too. They passed a regulation on taxes that have to be paid both by foreign producers of PPEs and domestic producers. But there are some missing standards, and that's what concerns us. The standards that would allow us to keep records of the PPEs and how those get utilized, how they get disposed of. The Health Ministry drafted some standards which allow to do calculations of the PPEs, the use of them, the training of personnel. but still there is no way to see how many PPEs have been purchased by a health institution and how many of those have been actually used. There is no way for us to see that. Sometimes disposable PPEs get washed and then reused. This is not the way. This is totally unacceptable. So we checked with the health ministry and we need to get a way to see how many PPEs are actually used. Okay, I'm sorry, but there is a time limit, and okay, just one more point and I'm done. I thank you all, and I hope this collaboration will continue. And this time, this day is attached to a good motto, which is to anticipate and respond to the crisis, and that's the way to go. We should be able to anticipate something like that, and then we need to keep some stocks and reserves of PPEs in case they need it. Okay, thank you. I appreciate those messages, and I wish you success in your endeavors for the sake of safety of all of us. I'd like to move on to Tatiana Gedak. She's the acting director of the Health Department of Nova Poshta Company. Many people are using their postal services, so she will tell us about what they're doing. They are supposed to work uninterruptedly. Hello. Well, my company operates countrywide, nationwide. We have about 28,000 employees. And I'd like to show some practical cases, things that we did in our campaign, in our company. A year ago, we monitored the developments from the very outset. We checked with top virologists and doctors. In late February last year, the company realized that the crisis is imminent, and we began drafting a scenario of what should we do further, like teleworking, creating safe conditions for employees and customers in our offices, branches, and in the sorting centers, delivering parcels if a region gets shut down or there are limits on conveyance and traffic. We also figured out what to do if some fellow colleagues exhibit signs of a disease. So all of that helped us do well as the situation unfolded. Over a couple of weeks, more than 2,000 people in the support office in Poltava and Kiev have been switched to teleworking mode. All of the scheduled business trips were cancelled. Corporate training was done online. All of the employees got PPEs, face masks, shields, protective gloves, and antiseptic substances. Also, they could measure their temperature. Terminal and branch staff work there where they could go to work and back home within a walking distance. We also insured the employees for the time of the pandemic, even those who were still on a trial run with us. So now all of the company's employees are insured. We also placed marks on the floor as a way of keeping people in the right distance. We provided disinfectant substances for customers in our branches, and also there is a rule like one operator, one customer. We also made a decision to establish our own in-house epidemiology service. which monitors the situation and sanitary and hygienic conditions in all of our branches, and it helps prevent the spread of the infection. There are 9 experts doing this. They are epidemiologists, doctors. So this in-house service will be with us. It will be with us after the pandemic. What else helps keep the operations running? We created mobile units of employees. They worked with us earlier, especially when the Black Friday comes or the pre-Christmas time. So now we have even more mobile units, and they are doing a significant part of the job now. We drafted an in-house standard for safe operations of branches under the national quarantine. The standards are refined from time to time, and they cover major requirements that you get in case of quarantine restrictions, the use of disinfectant substances, and things you should do if one of the colleagues is infected. We have 12 contracts with private laboratories which do PCR testing. They cover all of the employees of this company across the country. Most of the staff can now choose a lab they trust more. We bought oxygen concentrators if need be. They're dispatched to those employees who are in need of the oxygen therapy. Whenever a COVID case has been detected, epidemiologists organize the disinfection at the site. They use ozone substances or contact techniques. Since March of 2020, the company implemented more than 10,000 PCR tests in order to quickly identify sick staff, and we purchased more than 3,000 express test kits. In the course of the quarantine, we didn't do any staff cuts. In fact, we hired more than 2,000 staff, like hand carriers, operators, managers, handlers. So this allowed us to create a safe space for work for the entire staff of the company. We also take care of the safe environment across all of our branches. In this slide, we can see more technical things involved in safety at work that we practice. One of the goals was to set up a safe environment in the outlying territory of a branch. In terminals, we try to distribute the routes for transport and pedestrians. So in terminals where there is an outlying territory with a checkpoint and everything, we are setting up those islands of safety, stops for transport, pathways for pedestrians. There is a parking lot for service transport, and when staff leave a bus that takes them to work, they enter the zone of the terminal. And people know where they need to rally in case of evacuation. There's a stop sign, a limit line for the buses and the service transport. There is this barrier and traffic light. So that's the safety of traffic in the outlying territory. We also installed speed bumps which makes it safer for everybody in the terminal compound. Now we have a particular parking lot. There are road signs indicating where what particular types of transport can park, where the service bus carrying staff should be found, where handling is done, where trucks are supposed to stop. We also need to segregate pathways for pedestrians and hardware, because that's where the sorting operations are done before dispatch and delivery. So all of these pathways have been segregated, and now we do the same across other branches. There is a way of doing it in Lviv. You have crosswalks and signs. There are lines indicating where pedestrians are supposed to be moving, and electric vehicles and the like. And those are real-life practices. You can see we've got these pedestrian zones. There's an indication where you should go. There are crosswalks for pedestrians. There are marks on the road, signs. That gives you a good visual idea of what's going on. We also have leaflets, which are given to the visitors of the terminal. And also, those are given to the drivers, and that's where you can read everything about the safety precautions. We wanted to enable safe parking for cars. If a truck backs up, there is a sound signal coming up, and all of our contractors have those systems installed in their trucks, so this helps prevent accidents. Wherever you have parking lots for cars, there are particular signs there, like no entry, no entrance, to keep chaotic movement of people from happening. One more case, automatic conveyance of cargoes. The metal net containers are not moved automatically inside the terminal, but we tried using robots to get them to move these containers, and it's been a successful practice, so we are intending to replicate this across the rest of the units, branches, and this will only add to safer work conditions. Based on the risk assessment, we have decided to distribute hard hats among the staff. They do a lot of handling, and now they are fully equipped with PPEs. Apart from that, in 15 terminals, we are purchasing protective gear. There is a contractor supplying us with that, so our staff are always neat, wearing adequate gear, and it allows them to enjoy better safety, and they have all of the PPEs in place for that. And also, we do this procurement based on tendering. We have well-equipped training classes, rooms, but we're replicating this thing, and we're going to use mock-ups for training, and employees will be able to see what they should do and how. So these are the work boxes. hydraulic hardware and metal net containers, and you have it all visualized. You can see this all up in the stands, and that's how people get both theoretical and practical skill as a result of this training. The company seeks to create safe work conditions and fire safety. In each terminal, we've got voluntary firefighting units. All of them have completed special training. They have all PPEs in place, and we keep offering training to the staff to get them to learn to use fire extinguishing options and practices. We installed mobile stations where, apart from the fire extinguisher and the hard hat for these firefighting units, there are also kits which can help you in case of an emergency. If a cargo that was moving through the terminal falls apart, then an employee in that setting can use PPEs, which are found in this emergency kit, and it works out pretty well. As a way of preventing injury, because one of the parcels has broken up. Well, thank you. I appreciate this opportunity to speak, so I know you gotta keep the time. In this company, time really matters, so I know what it's like. So I'd like to wish you good health and inspiration, and let's keep on moving forward in spite of everything that gets in the way. Okay, I feel like saying something but they might call me sexist, so I'm not gonna do it. So we're gonna have something from one more OSH officer, but before that, I would say this. Nova Poshta services are comfortable, convenient, and safe. So what you do is a response to what we demand, and you're doing a good job, and all of that is done for the safety of your staff. I have seen it myself, and what you have shown is not a movie, it's a reality. In Düsseldorf, I remember the A+A exhibition, and I can see the same thing is done in this country. And it's not just done by Nova Poshta, but you're our partner now. So with this, I would like to turn over to Darina Tarasenko. She's in Kharkiv, and she represents the National Pharmaceutical University. I know what you do. Thank you. My university is the flagship in training pharmaceutical personnel for this country and for the three others. We have about 1,300 staff, and we train 13,000 students in different areas like pharmaceutical field, pharmaceutical chemistry. We also offer post-diploma training. We have 3 standards of quality management system. Quarantine restrictions. Were a surprise to many operators in the field. The National Pharmaceutical University decided to offer online educational services. We have been doing that for the last 10 years here and there. We fully abide by the government recommendations. We supply staff with PPEs, sanitizers, we disinfect premises. Health of the staff is our top priority, and students too. Special work groups have been established for that. We have a system of warning if we find somebody with the symptoms of something like COVID, and for that we use 3 online services. We also established a routine for personnel if something like that happens. It features 6 instructions and things that you should do. It considers things like an age of a student, options they have, and so on. In the building of the university, you have special premises where people who feel unwell can be found until we have decided what to do about them. We can do distant work for the personnel. That's especially true of the people who were in contact with the patient, but the doctors have not decided to isolate that person. In case of confirmed case of a disease, these people would be placed on distant learning options. In the university, you get the electronic system of control, which allows to restrict access to service premises. Only some people can be allowed to get in there to prevent mass infection. And we also restricted access to that for certain people. There are all of the markings in place. Access to premises is activated following a temperature screening. We make changes to the schedule of classes considering epidemiologic situation in the city. There is a schedule for attending catering facilities to make sure that not too many people congregate at the same time. For the dormitory residents, we have 12 isolating premises. They feature a separate entryways, PPEs, internet service, paper towels, sanitizers, and other things. There is personnel there who can come to your help if need be. That allowed us to keep everybody safe and healthy. I'd like to wish you the same, and thank you for this opportunity to share some of our experience. Thank you, Darina. I appreciate the brevity. I was actually looking through the questions we're having. Well, I guess those who are supposed to be answering are gone, and we were supposed to have 10 minutes to answer all of the questions. We cannot do it like that, so we're gonna furnish answers through the magazine. But let me just pick up a few things from the questions. We have more than 770 people taking part in this, all in all. There have been questions about SLS, supervisory authorities, about inspections. I cannot answer them all, and I will pass on these questions to those who can answer. Sergei Sechin responds to a question from Valery Sipeyev. There is an existing cooperation agreement, but the trade unions do not involve technical inspection, which trade unions have. So it's a topical issue. We're gonna see what can be done about that. Maybe laws have been changed to make sure that both employers and employees are responsible for working in the informal sector. There is such a thing, and it should be discussed further. People do it because they don't have other options, so they are under certain circumstances. I'd like to thank the practitioners who spoke with us. We didn't have questions for them, and since we're running out of time, we will be able to answer the questions later. I didn't have any questions either. I think they all have shown us what they're doing, which way is it going, what employers think about responding to the emerging challenges out there today. We're going to have Sofia Litvin, the national coordinator of the EU-ILO Project in Ukraine. She will brief us on the instruments of the project to prevent and reduce the consequences of COVID-19. Sofia was actively involved in organizing this conference, trying to make it the right thing. I like the way it's going. I like it too, thank you. And this project supports this conference devoted to the World OSH Day at work. We always celebrated it, so one of the key components of the project is OSH at work. Today we spoke of investments in OSH. Antonio spoke about that in particular. So investments are not just about money, and it's not primarily about money. Investments have to go in the human resources, their knowledge and skill, and we need updated information about that. If you are aware of something, you're in control. This project began in 2020, and it happened just before the lockdown. We made with the work plans, determined tasks and objectives, and then we ended up in a situation where everybody is going to distant work and teleworking. We didn't know what to do, and we quickly changed the plans, and we have been able to pick up this COVID situation in the context of OSH at work. We conducted a number of sessions, produced a lot of information about OSH at work and how it can mitigate the consequences of COVID. I remember what a colleague from Nova Pošta said. We're doing this not because it's life and safety of employees, but the business is interested in that. They need to operate uninterruptedly, especially in the case of the pandemic, and much depends on the efficient OSH practices at work in that business. And that means the company works on, keeps making money, keeps paying salaries to employees. So this is something that matters to employees and employers in terms of economy and in terms of humane ways of addressing it. I'd like to show the website of the project. We have spent a year and a half working, and it has become a powerful resource. There are key components there, as you can see. So you can see the site, and I can share the link through the chat to this site. You can see the key components of what we do: OSH at work, employment relations, undeclared work, and labor inspection. There was a question in Zoom about what this project is doing. As reforms of the labor law continue, If we think of employment relations, you can find technical recommendations from this project on a number of draft laws pertinent to employment relations and standard employment options, and that's where you can see the expert opinions about those drafts, and you can see particular proposed ways in which all of that can be aligned to the European practices. But let's go back to OSH at work now. Let's open up this component. Is there any way to magnify this slide? You should not be showing me, actually. Show the slide. So in this section, you can see a number of key items, subsections. Keep scrolling down. You can see the directives we work with in this project in order to help draft the legislative basis in pursuance of the directives. If we go further down, you will see there are technical recommendations from the project on the OSH law. You're welcome to check them out. You can see a lot of materials, footage, online training sessions we did online under the COVID setting. It was all about OSH at work, and also there are international standards addressed in this regard. You can see a series of presentations on OSH made by Antonio Santos over the last year. So here you can see a lot of interesting information. But that's like a fundamental global type of information. If we think of some hands-on experience, which can be used at the company level, then you gotta go to the other section. So let's go back to the main page and let's show the right side of the slide. Here you get some stuff on COVID. There are two sections here. One of them is how can OSH mitigate the consequences? You're welcome to hit that button. So here there is some stuff for trade unions, employers, labor inspectors. You can see the checklists, recommendations for employers in terms of safe return to work, and lots of other things. You can find some videos and webinars we made for employers, trade unions, and labor inspectors. Well, most of that is actually found on their internal resource. Now, OSH practices for sectors and professions, occupations. There is a breakdown by sectors here for which we have available information. We took it from the ILO resources. There is a health sector, timber harvesting, food industry, construction, and there are 27 advisories for occupations and particular sectors. If we hit on the link here, there are 27 advisories, and that's where you get information for employers and employees considering things they do in a particular sector. So let's open up item number 6. Sales points. Well, these are very simple types of advisories where you get a detailed account of what should be done in shops and stores. This is a simple message, and this is what was produced by the French ministry, we got this translated and shared it with you. So it's an existing product. OSH experts are welcome to take it on board and use it in their respective companies. Thank you. And the last section I would like to show, it's not quite filled up yet. It's about the World OSH Day 2021. It's not complete yet because the materials on this day have been prepared by the ILO. There is a big report on 100 pages about investments in OSH. There are 34 pages of brochures. So we are completing a mock-up in Ukrainian, so it will soon be available for use. Hopefully on the 28th of April we're going to be able to upload it here and you will be able to see it. It's an interesting material. You're welcome to check it out. I read it in one night, and while reading this you have to look at this link at the end of the report. It takes you to all of the papers, documents of the national, international, company level. You will find advisories, recommendations on how to combat COVID at work. So we didn't have to reinvent the wheel. There is a lot of stuff. There are lots of existing practices in the world. You just need to check them out. Well, that's it actually for now, and I'd like to once again thank you all and congratulate you on this day. It's only getting started. I mean, the ILO is not celebrating it yet, and we are here doing this conference, but it's one of the few events that are going to be conducted in the coming days, and I think you're going to join other events and we're going to see you all around. You're welcome to sign up to the website. You're going to be getting news and updates from us, including on OSH at work. Thank you. Back over to the moderator. Thank you, Sophia. Thank you for this brief yet informative talk, and as you can see, there is a lot of information for users, and this event is nearing its end, and at the end of the day, this country should be first in some of the good things that are done. So what we do today is a good thing, and it happened on the eve of the World OSH Day, and that's something that will be appreciated by the ILO and others. So with this, we're into the fun part. So we can do the summary and we can announce the children's drawing competition. It's a unique development. The ILO celebrated a centennial anniversary a while ago, and I could see that Ukraine took part in this world round-the-clock marathon involving hundreds of countries, and Ukraine came up with this competition, and experts could see it as a unique phenomenon in this country. It is the cheapest, the easiest way of making people aware of OSH at work. So let's watch a video which allows you to see how it was happening, what was that about.
Це фінальна частина. Відбувається відбір переможців із 250 малюнків журі редакції журналу «Охорона праці» з залученням Міністерства культури, Міністерства освіти. Вибирає.
They selected the best drawings as prize winners, and it was not an easy thing for experts to do.
Ну ось за короткі, буквально 2,5 хвилини ви переглянули
So you have seen in 2 minutes 4 hours of work done by the panel of judges and the winning pieces. So these are the results of this competition that are coming right up. It was organized by the SLS and OSH Magazine. It's a social project. We have been doing this over the last 10 years. Thousands of children from across the country participated in that. We had 90 winners. One of the issues of our magazine carries an interview. He is with a boy. He is employed now, but he told us about the experience of taking part in this competition. This time we're going to present the new winners. They hit the nail on the head. That's what this competition was about in 2015, 16, and 17. Commemoration. It's been quite an emotional story. Kids would come down to Kiev, taking trips around the city. It's been quite an experience for them. 2019, 2020, 2021, wearing face masks. In 2022, you're welcome to participate in this again. In 2021, we had more than 14,000 on the record. People in Zaporozhye, Lvov, Khmelnytsky, Kherson, Kharkov. All in all, we had 125 drawings to select from. Some of the kids might recognize their pieces. And these are the judges on the panel. They remember selecting the best of the best. Well, congratulations on that. So you've made it to the top 10. You get some more of that here. We're intending to do the auction of the children's drawings, and we want for that to become a trendy thing in companies and factories, businesses, to do these kinds of competitions of children's drawings, and that's a good way of making a call for a safe work, and it motivates you to practice OSH. Hello to these kids too, and authors of these pieces, and these ones too. So you can see these are unique pieces and kids authored them, and that's how they reflect certain peculiarities of particular types of things that you do. We earlier photographed everybody alive, and now we have collected all of the winners, 9 of them in 3 age groups. Here are them all. Would like to thank Irina for the work you have done. Maybe your drawings will save somebody's life, because when you look at that, you really care. Thank you, kids. Thank you, parents and teachers. You have been able to let them get the point. So with this, first age group, Lydia Shevtsova, she's the winner. Number 2, Irina Kravchuk. Number 3, Olga Kovalenko. And these are their particular pieces.
оцінили журі ваш підхід до цієї справи. І Ліда Шевцова теж спасибі, своє бачення. Переможці другої вікової групи 11-14 років. Аліса Гвоздкова, перше, друге Михайло Мельниченко і третє Віктор Головенко. Це Маріуполь, Токмак і село Вереси Житомирської області. Ось ці твори. Цей, до речі, був відзначений окремо, про це я скажу нижче. Лісове господарство. Михайло так бачить проблеми, які є яскраво. І пані Аліса Гвоздкова, ну, по-сучасному. Дуже цікавий теж твір. Я скажу, що переможці було дуже вибирати важко, і хто не попав в переможці, нічого не означає. Вони достойні роботи були. І третя група, найстарша, 15-18 років, це ті, хто вже скоро стане біля керма автомобіля, біля станка або іншого виду діяльності. Перше місце Анна Литвин, Красноград Харківської області. Друге Ірина Колісніченко, Братське, Миколаївська. І Аліна Кондращенко, третє місце, Борзна Чернігівської області. Ваші малюночки дивиться тепер вся Україна і буде бачити.
So we can see Alina, and that's an interesting thing too. So it is something that you're not supposed to do. It's one of the don'ts. 25% of the drawings portrayed the COVID situation in terms of what medics do as they handle infectious diseases. And these are the awards. You can see them here. So these are the awards that will be offered. So you get a smartphone or a tablet, a medal, and a special diploma. A state forestry agency, they offer 3 awards. Victor, Galina, and Darya, they will get special awards outside this competition in a special nomination. These are the drawings from Alina and Darya. These are the awards they receive. From the State Forestry Agency, you can see them up here, the tablets, and it's going to help you with distant learning. A special nomination from the Zega. They produce PPEs for mining operations. Anna Litvin took the top spot. She's from Kharkiv region. Katerina Bespalka. It's a unique village where every year kids take part in these things and often win. Victoria from Lviv region. Sergei Feofanov gets a special prize for an original idea. So we can see the Zago, the company which cares about the safety of miners, and they keep producing new PPEs. So everybody will get a certain encouraging kind of award. So I have some of those in the studio, so they will get tablets and smartphones and souvenirs and diplomas. So I'd like to thank the sponsors of the competition. They helped us with this. They supplied their gifts, technical support. So the Zaga, that's one of the largest producers in the world of mining hardware. They use up to 500 items produced by the Zaga. State Forestry Agency responded to the call, and that's one of the government institutions. That's our key value. I mean, forest is our key value. And they took part in this. Bika company, founded in 2007, they offer PPEs to customers. And they also provided some presents and gifts. Nova Poshta, we spoke of them before. Donetsk Stal, Kernel, Sergei Ros. We acknowledge your participation. Rovno nuclear plant. Construction Trade Union, Mr. Andreev. Kharkiv Gas, Kharkiv Vodokanal. These are the people that have been with us, helping us with that. Okay, that's all? Okay. And all of that is real, you know. I have all of the awards that we're gonna mail to the winners. You're gonna get it from the local SLS office. Then there are smartphones here and diplomas. The OSH Magazine carries a good coverage of that, and now you make history of OSH because you take care of this right now, and you will keep on doing that once you have become general directors and managers. The Zega shared a few valuable presents, tablets, and lots of other knickknacks that I think you will need. And here is a present from State Forestry Agency, a tablet like this. Next year there will be better presents, I guess. You have to invest in OSH, in kids and so on, and parents are a part of the deal too. You get special presents from Bingo. That's about safe travel. That's actually it, so you all should get it. So with this, I would like to appreciate everybody who took part in the competition. Lots of children, parents, teachers, workers, public servants, SLS personnel. I'd like to thank the chiefs of offices who conducted this competition in Poltava, in other places, in Kharkiv, in Lviv region. We will write a full account of that, but you are doing this for the sake of the future of the SLS. And wrapping up this conference, I would like to thank all organizers, presenters from the SLS, Mr. Sezhienko, Degnera, ILO, Mr. Santosh, and Sophia Litvin, and everybody else. We're going to resume on the 28th. There's going to be a marathon. You can use this information in your events that you're going to be doing on the World OSH Day. Thank you so much for staying throughout the entire event today. I'll see you around. Be safe, take care, and work safely. May it all be good for you. I'll see you.